Well, hello, shiny crafty people, and welcome back to the channel. Tim Totten here, and today I'm going to show you this really cool 3D shield mask that I designed over the last couple weeks, and it features no stitching lines or cutting lines anywhere on the front of the mask. In fact, the shape that it starts out with is sort of a shield design, which is why I call it the 3D shield, and there are no cuts. Everything is just folded. So join me down here at the cutting table, and I'll show you what it takes to create this 3D shield mask that completely seals around the outside. All right, come on down. All right, so for this project, we're gonna need an outer fabric, something we're gonna make for the outside of the mask. We need an inner fabric, and in fact, I have both an inner fabric and an inner fabric, which will be a third layer. I'm gonna use 2 layers of this pink fabric to make 3 layers. I'm gonna need some elastic. We're gonna cut 2 pieces about 16 inches long each. I'm gonna use some toggles to help with that elastic so it can be adjustable to people's faces. I am going to use some nose bridge wires. These are the stick-on kind, but you can also use wire or the other metal kind. I'm going to use some clips rather than pins. And I'm going to use something to cut with. I like a rotary cutter and a cutting grid, but you can also use a pair of scissors and mark on it. You will need to mark a pen or pencil to mark out your pattern. Speaking of the pattern, here we go. We have our pattern. I'm going to use an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, but I'm also going to show you how to use some freezer paper for the exact same thing. So I've just bought freezer paper and cut it to 8.5 by 11 piece here. And then of course you need something to turn it with. You're gonna need an iron. I like this Home Ever iron that creates a lot of steam. Really nice. And I'll need a sewing machine. So I'm going to clear all this away, and I'll show you how to make the pattern. So our pattern is like the shape of a shield. And in fact, there's a center mark here, and the top is at 3 inches. It drops down 1 3/4 inches, then 1.5 inches. Then it comes down to only 2.5 inches wide at the bottom. So 6 inches wide at the top, 2.5 inches wide at the bottom. To create this, I'm going to take my pattern piece, my fabric, or my paper, I'm sorry, and I'm gonna use an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Now you could do this on a standard piece of paper if you want. I'm gonna do it on freezer paper, and I'll show you why in a minute. So I'm gonna fold this in half right along the edge to get it perfectly lined up. And then I'm gonna measure down 8.5 inches to cut. So what I'll do is I'll take my measuring piece here, measure down 8.5 inches is the very bottom. 8.5, right along that bottom edge. And I can do it on both sides, both edges. I'm putting the 8.5 here at the top. I don't know if you can see the 8.5. There we go. Let me see that better. The 8.5 here. Mark it on there. So that's going to be the very bottom edge, which we'll chop off. I'll just draw that along the bottom. And while I'm here along the bottom, and I measure over 1.5 inches, sorry, 1.25 inches, and make that mark. Then along the side, I'm going to measure down. Now this is along the side that is the 2 edges that are open, not the folded side. Along the side here, I'm going to measure down 1 3/4 inches. 1 3/4 inches. Then I'm going to measure down another 1.5 inches. Make sure that looks right. 1.5 inches. And then I need to measure 3 inches over from the center. Put my 3-inch mark on there. All right, those are all of the marks that I need. I'm going to connect these 2 marks and connect these 2 marks. And then we're going to chop those out while it's right here on the table. Now you may have seen some of those videos online where they do this sort of thing, really fast motion, and mark out all these centimeters and inches and chop and cut and create this unusual shape. It's kind of what I'm doing, and I'm gonna do it in real time with you. The last thing I need to do is I need to make a mark at 2.25 inches up the side here. So in fact, if I put this at 0 at that point at the bottom, then I come up to 2.25 inches and put a mark there. And I'm actually gonna cut a notch out of that, and I'll show you why in a minute. So let me use my rotary cutter. Now I'm going to use one that has a blade for paper already inserted into it. And then I'm going to use a cutting grid to cut this out. Now you could actually do this exact same thing on the fabric if you wanted to. Just create it every single time on the fabric would be fine. And I've seen people do that. Just take the fabric and fold it in half and do this plan. I like to do it this particular way on freezer paper, because then we're going to then put this freezer paper down onto the fabric that we're going to cut out. So I had that mark like you see, and I'm just going to take a little pair of snipping scissors. These are not my fabric scissors, and just cut out a little notch there. It's kind of like the notch you'd have on other pattern pieces, and this is going to show us where to fold later. We'll make a mark on that. So this is our shape for our pieces of fabric, so that what we'll get is, like you'll see on this one I've done before, we'll get that shield type of shape out of that. All right, so I'm going to pull my iron over while I'm waiting for this iron to get ready, which is almost ready. You could also cut this out of a piece of clear acrylic if you wanted. Like we've made acrylic templates for other things. The thing is, like, you know, if you're just trying this out, maybe you don't want to cut it out of clear acrylic yet. But if you really love this so much, you could really do that, because it would help you place your design. But also, it's interesting, we've been making these clear acrylic templates for other masks on my channel. And I have to tell you, the most frustrating thing lately has not been getting orders. We love that. We've had over 1,500 of them ordered by people. It's been getting them from the postal service to you. And apparently we had some orders going to California in the last couple of weeks, but they all go through Texas. And if you watch the news lately, you might know that Texas was under all kinds of a big crazy snowstorm and ice storm they weren't expecting. And it means a lot of them got stuck, and we literally had no ability to get them to go anywhere. And so we had customers calling us. We had to say, you know, we've called the Postal Service too, and they can't tell us where they are. Luckily, they've started moving again. So if you ordered an acrylic template from us lately and you're kind of wondering where it is, we do ship priority mail, which is supposed to be 2 to 3 days or 4 days or 5 days. Unfortunately, some of them have gone 2-3 weeks, and we are working as hard as we can to get them to you. There's not a lot I can do, and I hope that they get that fixed pretty soon. If it continues, though, we'll find a different service to send this stuff to you. All right, I want to go down to the table and show you with our iron what we're doing. And I'm going to show you how to use your iron and some freezer paper to do this material. So I'm going to take the material that's going to be our lining fabric, the inner fabric that goes against your face, and a piece of lining fabric. This is to get us 3 layers like the CDC has suggested. So I'm just pressing this to get, and using some steam, and then I'm going to place down my pattern piece, and then I'm just gonna give it some heat. Now, the freezer paper, you're not trying to superfuse this down. Like, I wanna be able to peel it off and use it again, so I'm not trying to super melt that material. I'm just getting it down to where it holds, and I can test it a little bit with my finger once it dries a little bit. You don't have any reason to use steam. There's no reason to use steam for this. If you did use steam on it, it might be actually warp the paper, so I'd be careful. So then I'll go back and let it dry, cool for a second, and see how well, and it's stuck pretty well. And then I can go through and just cut this apart. So I could just come along with a pair of scissors and cut next to it if I really wanted to. I could easily do that. Or I could use my rotary cutter. So in fact, I'm going to use the rotary cutter. I'll just move this out of the way and place this down and use, this square is kind of nice because it's easier to move around than the bigger piece. And I'm just going to make sure I'm not trimming off too much of that paper as I go. You could also transfer your marks with a pen, and that would be fine too. And I just gotta be careful that they stay together, that the actual fabric stays together and doesn't get squished off there. So as I'm cutting this out, I want to talk to you a little bit about rotary cutter safety. Like specifically, you really want to make sure that you're checking your blades and keeping them sharp. There are sharpening agents, and I will tell you, we've used all kinds of blades in my business because we use a lot of them, and so we bought cheap blades, expensive blades. I'm gonna tell you, the cheap blades, for me at least, didn't last very long. So we in fact have gone back to the expensive blades with the understanding that they're just a little more expensive and we're gonna have to deal with it. Last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer those marks, and I'm gonna just use my pen to transfer the mark onto here. And I only need it on one side because in fact I'm going to, when we use it later, I'll be able to see that mark. I only need it on one side. So I peel off the paper. See how that just peeled off? And then those two pieces are done. And if you wanted, you could spray base these together, or you could put some clips around it, or you could just put a basting stitch. It's all right. These two layers are ready. We're on to our next, which is this fabric that we're going to use. And I really like this. I'm going to bring this back over so we can see it. I like this design here of the girl with the heart. Isn't that cute? I think that's really pretty. And in fact, because of how large the actual design can be, I want to see it right in the middle. So I'm going to take my pattern and sort of center it where I can kind of see her through the middle. This is another way that if you were doing, you could also just fold it back in half and then put it right through the middle like that. See how you can put it right through the middle? I just put it on that heart. The nice thing about this is that if you did it with acrylic, you could easily then really see right through it. I can see through. You may not be able to see through it as well, but I can totally see through it right now. And then I will press that down. And then this is what's called like fussy cutting, where you're trying to get a specific design from the pattern. This particular template works really well for this because it is all one big piece. Literally, we're not going to chop anything into this design. We are going to, of course, use our pleats here at the bottom and here the sides. Those pleats will take out a portion, but you're not having to put big lines through or cut out any of the materials. So that's what's great about it. You're going to be able to use that big center piece, and then feels like it's cooling off and it's going to be ready to go. So I can cut this out as well. And so I'll go ahead and start getting that done. And again, scissors are perfectly fine for this. Like, you don't have to be the person who wields a rotary cutter all the time to make this happen. It's not required. You can definitely be a fan of scissors. Now, again, I'm doing this with freezer paper, but you could easily do this just by marking on with a template that you made out of regular paper, and then drawing it on here and then cutting it out. You're not going to see any of these edges because it's all 1/4 inch seam allowances at the very minimum, and so you're not going to see any of this stuff later. I love looking at my workstation when I'm done because I have little scraps of things everywhere. I have to clean up every once in a while as I'm going along, otherwise I get really stuck. All right, so what we've got now is, oh, I got to mark first. Hold on, let me put the mark on here. I need to really mark that really well. Let me do it on the table and that one here. I might want to do it on the opposite side to make sure I can see it. I don't want to miss that mark. You could also put a pin in it if you felt like you needed to. So I'm going to actually show you one with a pin. So I will mark it with a pin and put the pin through at that point. And again, this is just a single layer of fabric. So I've got that piece cut now. And I have these two pieces together cut. Our next step is going to be to create the pleats that need to go here. That is these pleats right here on the bottom of that mask. These pleats. And going from the wrong side is the best strategy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mark, put a pleat in here, and bring it 1/4 inch from the bottom. And the way to do that is to fold at this mark and bring it down to 1/4 inch from the bottom, right there. And I'll use my clips to put a clip on that right there. And see what it's done, it's created a pleat on the other side. Same thing over here, and this is one if you were using a pin, you would use that pin, fold at the pin, fold the right sides together, fold at the pin, right? And then bring back to within a 1/4 inch of that bottom small end of the shield. And again, the clip goes on that, holds it together. So you kind of create this shape at the bottom of the shield. We'll do it again with this one, and we're going to pretend that this is the wrong side of the fabric. So we're going to fold at that point and bring it to within a 1/4 inch of the bottom. Keep these fabrics lined up together. Put it on a clip. These Wonder Clips are great, I really love them. Do the same thing on the other side. Fold and bring up to that point within a 1/4 inch. Make sure again that your fabrics are still together. And if you're having a problem with these staying together, just do a real small basting stitch, an 1/8 inch seam basting stitch around the entire thing, and it'll hold it together. So this is what you end up with, these two pieces that look like shields with little funky bowls. Now I'm gonna use some white elastic, and I'm gonna cut these 16 inches, these pieces 16 inches each. So I'm just gonna use my measurement here and cut them at 16 inches. That's really long, but I'm gonna be using those toggles, and that will give me all of the space that I need to like adjust them for any one size face. And one of the things I like about this particular design is that it fits pretty much every face that I put it on. I put it on, oh, I don't know, 4 or 5 different faces. I think it's 5 now, and it really, really fits well, surprisingly. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn over the one that's the pretty fabric. That'll be my outside fabric. And I'm going to have the elastic come off of these wings here. And it's gonna go perpendicular to each of those. So it'll loop down in here. So I will bring it about a 1/4 inch from the edge, from that point, put it on there and clip it. Okay. Then I wanna make sure it's gonna stay flat as it goes around. And I bring it back to the other side, and again, about a 1/4 inch or so from that point, and clip that on. Keep it out of the way here. Just get it out of the way. It's not gonna be in it because you're only stitching around the outside. And then I'm gonna place this one, again, wrong sides to wrong sides. And I know this is the wrong side because the mountain of this fold is on the wrong side. I bring it together here, and I will match those points. And I'm going to hold all the layers together. That's gonna hold the elastic in there, and transfer the elastic or the clip to all 3 or 4 layers now, because it's 2 layers of the pink fabric, the 1 layer of the elastic, and the 1 layer of the fabric pined. Again, do the same thing, and now the elastic is caught in there. Then I'm just gonna go around and pin all of the other areas together. So I'll just, not pin, I should say clip. And then I'm gonna come here and do the same thing on these edges. See here, I'm gonna make sure these points line up. Now, I love the clips because I can't accidentally run over them. I don't like them as much because you have to take them out as you're sewing. I'm gonna match up the very bottom edge there. Make sure those points line up, and then put a couple pins in that, or sorry, clips on that, so that it holds that together, because now I can come over to this side and very carefully take out the clips on each of these 2 folds, but make sure they still stay together, like this. And then I'll put a clip back. And again, add a clip further along. Same thing on this side. Let's make sure all the elastic stays in. Shove that back in there. We don't want that coming out. And go ahead and clip all of those points together. All right, then I'm gonna take out the clips on these, but I'm holding the fabric together with my fingers. Put a clip back on it. Now I actually need to sew around this entire thing, but leave an opening for us to turn it. So let's go over the sewing machine, and I'm gonna show you how we're gonna put that together. All right, we're here at the sewing machine, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave a gap in one side near the bottom. See, this is the bottom where those folds were, and up to this point here on the side. So I will literally start sewing at this first set of pleats at the bottom. I'll sew just before the pleats start. I'm using about a 2mm stitch length. I'm using my needle in the down position here on the machine. And I am using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I'm going to be very careful and hold these pleats in with my hand after I take those clips off. So I'm just turning every time there's a turn. I take the clip off and I stitch to that point, stopping about a 1/4 inch, and keep going. And remember, I'm going to leave a section over here open so that I can turn this thing inside out. Take the clip off. Now here's where I have to hold down my finger because see that elastic is in there. So I'm going to hold it down my finger to make sure it doesn't move. I might do a little extra stitching across there. I'm just backing up. I'm using the reverse button, which is over here on my machine. Take that off and just make sure we're lined up properly. 1/4 inch seam allowance the whole way. Now you certainly could use a bigger seam allowance, and I would just say you need to cut your fabric a little wider if that's the case. And again, I'm going to hold down that elastic because it's in there. I'm going back and forth over that elastic. And we're getting back down toward the point where I need to leave that hole in the side. So I'm going to turn and just stitch a little bit here. So now I have gone all the way around and I'm leaving an opening here to turn this inside out. Before I do that though, I'm going to go ahead and clip these edges along this side, and I am going to work on putting that nose piece here in the top. Let's go back over to the cutting table and I'll show you what I'm doing with that. So here we are at the piece has been sewn together with a little section left here for me to turn it inside out. I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and go around and very carefully just clip some of the excess out of these corners because there's a bunch of points on this thing actually. I just want to give it a little bit of more room to turn, especially since there are 3 fabrics in here. So I'm just cutting a little bit out of each of these. So here's a corner point. I'm just going to cut a little bit of that material out so that it can turn easier. Another point there. See this one? I'm not trying to get right into the stitching. I'm not trying to cut this. Actually, you can see better on this side. I'm not trying to cut the stitching out because that would be bad. So now I've gone around the whole piece, and of course, this is where I'm going to turn it in just a moment. But first, I want to go ahead. This is the top, and this is the bottom where those pleats are already put in. And here at the top in this one, I'm going to go ahead and put my metal piece on. Now, I'm using a metal piece that has a piece of tape off the back, a backed one. I'm going to use that, but you could easily just not worry about that particular kind and then fit it in later. But I kind of like doing it now because it'll stay in for a little bit and it'll be easier to sew around. Now, some people make ones that are removable. There are ways to do that. This particular mask, I'm kind of on the fence about any mask trying to make it too reusable, because the reality is I have talked to so many people who have made our masks, or who have used our masks, and I got to be honest with you, many of them don't reuse. They just don't reuse their stuff, and so they lose it before they would be trying to reuse it, is what I'm trying to say. And so I'm not actually terribly worried about people being able to make this mask last longer than, 6 weeks or 2 months or something like that. So I'm going to stick that on and just be very careful as I turn this entire thing inside out. So I'm going to make sure I'm going between the outer fabric and that inner lining fabric. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the part that has that metal piece through first, so I don't have to worry about it bending too much. Yeah, look at that. It's starting to birth itself through there, and you can grab the elastic if you want help with that. And then this is where you need some kind of a point turner, something that's going to turn these points inside out. Now I'm going to use this thing called a purple thing. It's not actually purple, but it is that purple thing, Thang. And it's got a couple great points. This is like a little iron thing that you can iron, you know, fabric down with. Here's a point, and there's actually a way to use elastic to fit elastic through. This is actually on a video that I made called 10 Essential Mask Making Tools, I think it's called. Really useful. So I'm going to come through here and turn these points. So you don't want to use scissors or a pin or anything else, because the reality is you will actually sometimes push through the fabric, and that's a really bad choice. This is not sharp enough to push through the fabric, but it is letting me get all those points stuck out. And remember, we have quite a few points because this is a 8-sided shape. And see, I need these points to get that shield shape done. Now at the bottom, it's gonna be a little different because you need to push out these areas that were the pleats down here. So I'm going to go in down to the bottom. This is what it kind of looks like, and sort of pull those points out in this way. See, I'm pushing those points. You can get in there with your finger and sort of push them out flat. Same thing, do all 4 of them. There are 4 of those there, 2 for each side. Really get those flattened out. And then when you're ready to put it back together, you need to push this inside fabric inside. So you kind of push it, you get those flattened to each other, and see what happens. Let me get you a better view of what that would look like. I want you to get a better shot. So I'm going to zoom you in. So I push all those fabrics, get those corners out, and then I grasp it where the 2 come here at the bottom and push those points into the outer points. See what I've done? I've kind of pushed. Let me get all that garbage out of the way at the bottom. I sort of pushed it in. And what it's going to create down here at the chin is actually 4 layers of fabric. And we're going to stitch across that space right there later and entrap our bottom elastic in it. We'll entrap that bottom elastic in there so it looks like this when it's done. So now I'm going to iron this thing out flat and fold this edge in. Let me do that now. I'll just use my finger, press it, fold it in to turn that edge. So let's go to the iron and see what that whole thing looks like. So over here at the iron, I'm going to flatten this piece out and make sure that we get all these edges nice and flat along here. We are going to top stitch all around it. I'm going to flatten that out. Then I'm going to come in here and I want to fold this part right here so that it properly folds. In fact, you may have to go in with your hand and kind of massage it. Yeah, that looks good. And then I'll use my iron to flatten that over. Oh, that looks good. And then I like to just sort of let this naturally fold where it wants to along the bottom after I push those points out. Right, push this point into that other one. Lay it flat there and go ahead and give it an iron across the bottom. Just press that. And again, I'm going to lift this up and press it here. So now that's our basic shape, but you'll notice on the other ones that we've made that there are these folds right here. See these folds? And I've got to figure out how to put those in properly. These folds right here. And the way we do that is we take from the inside and we're going to fold this point, a point here in the middle down to that bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold behind. See, I fold that sort of in half to that point to here. And then I fold the rest down underneath. So see what we've done here? We've created this shape along the side. And then I use a clip to hold that in place. And on the other side, look at the cute little way it does that connection. So from this side, I can show you how I would do it with this particular, on this side. I would fold down to, at this point, I would use this point as a fold down and back up. See what it's doing? I'll show you again. I want to get the halfway point here down to the point where they turn. See where it turns down here? There's a point there where it turns. So I'm going to fold at that point, put the point in, and then fold it back until this reaches the top. And another clip. So what we end up getting is this shape with it. And it starts to become that 3D view shape. So again, what we're doing is using these 3 points here. This point stays together up till here, and then this folds over. Bam, like that. Or if we do it from the other side, it looks like this. We're going to literally pinch at this point on the edge, pinch there till it goes down, and then bring it back up. So you're creating a little point that flips up to there, to the top corner. And now we can go to the sewing machine. Let me just clip this closed here. This is the hole that we have to stitch up on the side. That's the hole that we turn through. We've got to stitch all the way around here, and we just have to make sure that we jog low enough to go under that metal piece that's in there. So we'll go to the sewing machine and show you what that looks like. All right, I'm back here at the machine, and I'm going to use a top stitch, but I'm also going to go really close to the edge, but then I'm also going to make sure I skip this metal piece. So in fact, I like to start at that metal piece, and I can sort of see where it is. If you want, you can kind of pinch a little there so you'll know where to start. I'm going to go over here to the machine, and I'm just going to feed that elastic out of the way. And I know that I'm going to start just to the side of the metal piece, come down far enough to miss the metal piece, and then go across an even distance away from the top of the mask. Now I'm going to go just past the metal and come back up. And I'm going to stop about just a little tiny fraction away. You'll see from this side that I'm leaving just the tiniest amount between the needle and the edge. I'm going to pull off of this pin, this clip, and then I'm going to hold these pieces together as I stitch to the very edge, turn it just at the edge, and sew down that pleat. And then now I can turn a bit there, then take that clip off there, make sure these pieces are going to hold together properly. And this is closing up that hole, and I'm just flattening out this as I go around. So you'll notice it had turned, but I'm going to flatten it out. I get to the edge where all those pieces come together, just make sure I turn it. I'm really holding it nice and flat. This is going to close up. Now, one thing I just forgot to do was I forgot to put the elastic here in the center. So I'm going to show you real quick what I need to do with that. Let me take it out of the machine. I'm going to measure across the center of this bottom piece. And in fact, you'll see, it's really not very easy to do that. Let me go back over and show you what I mean. You see here along the bottom of the mask, this is the top that has the metal piece in. Here along the bottom, I need to put that elastic in, that larger piece of elastic that we had cut, which was 16 inches. So I'm going to take that part, and I'm going to find the center along the edge here. Now you can measure it. I've made so many of these now that I know where that is. I'm going to put here, right here in the center. And then I'm going to clip it, although you may want to mark it in some other way if you want, or use a pin. I'm going to clip it there, and then I'll continue my top stitching around the other part. So let's go back to the machine and I'll show that to you. All right, now that I've clipped that in, I can lay that out of my way and go back to top stitching. Now I'm going to take the pin off, the clip off, but I know where those are, and I'm going to hold them with my fingers. And I will just do a back stitch across there because that's going to have a lot of wear and tear. And again, you'd want to back stitch there because the top ones that you've put on have already had some back stitching and you're stitching through them again. So you want to add to the bottom one as well. Now it's important to know that if you want to get it at the right angle as this comes through, if I just pulled it straight, you might bunch up the fabric. So I'm going to get the right angle until I get to that corner where it's going to turn, and then I will turn all the fabric. See what I did there? I went on this distance and then I turned. And now you're pretty much home free. The only difference is I'm going to have to, when I get to this corner up here, I'm going to take off this clip, but still hold all of these layers together with my hands. And again, we have 8 sides, so we're turning it each time we get to the corner. Stitch across there. Now, if you felt like that wasn't going to be strong enough, you could always back stitch on these areas. And then I'm gonna come back up and meet where I started my sewing. And so there you go. We've sewn all the way down underneath the metal piece that's in here. See, there's a metal piece in there. Down, around, and completely around the entire thing. Well, there we go. We have created a 3D shield mask. Now I'm gonna add the two toggles to it. And depending upon, I mean, there is some black in here. I could put black toggles. I'm gonna put white ones. I think I'm gonna give this one possibly to my niece because the girl in this picture kind of looks like her. I think they'd be kind of sweet. So I'm gonna take those two toggles, see these silicone toggles? And I'm gonna use the enclosed bobby pin type device or a hair pin that they've given me. And I'll just find the center. I like to just sort of hold it. And in fact, you can put that pin on there and just sort of wiggle it around until it kind of feels like it's straight across. And then you squeeze that together so that you get those points together and just feed it through the toggle, right? You just have to give it a little bit of pull. There we go. And I'll do the same on the bottom one, which is easier because it's already pulled together. So we just sort of hold it until it gets the right way. And again, squeeze that through. Again, make sure it's even still. This is why I cut these a little longer than needed. Now, I pre-washed this fabric, but I'm also gonna wash this before I give it to her. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it on and show you that I made this for a girl's face, but it fits mine, and I'll show you some pictures of people wearing these masks to get an idea how different the sizes are that they fit. So I'm gonna bend the nose piece just for myself there. I'm gonna put this one around my neck. So around my neck. Now it's a little tight because I could pull that a little bit to give me a little more looseness. This is gonna be important for somebody with a smaller face, so it'll pull the chin back toward them. This is if you want a really tight fitting mask. And then I pull it up, get my nose piece where it needs to be, and I can tighten the top if I choose to. And there we go. That's the 3D shell mask. Now I'm gonna put back on the one that I have made for myself, and then we'll talk about rating it for comfort. So that's the one I just made for my niece. Isn't that cute? And I made this one for my friend Ryan, who makes me masks. I want him to see what it's like. He loves this lime green color. I made this for my dear friend who will be on a future video, I hope. She's really awesome. She's got a company called Ashe Botanica. She makes really great skincare products. And like I said, she has African heritage that she's been tracing, so I'd love to share that with her. And then this is the one I made for myself. Now mine does have a neck piece, but I'll tell you, I don't really need that. I like to tuck it up in. And so when I put this shell on, I hook it under my chin. And I want to show you how well this is sealing on my face, even without the chin piece hooked on. That's literally how good the seal is. There's nothing coming out here, nothing on the sides. And let me say, here's some pictures of a few other people wearing this exact same type of mask. Now here's the thing. All of theirs are made with the exact same pattern piece as this one. Literally the exact same pattern piece. It is a one size fits most design. So let me just talk to you about what I think is probably the importance, which is the ratings. Actually, let me put this one on and I'll show you. Isn't this nice? You can just kind of let it sit around your neck. I don't wear the neck one either because I made it too short. I only made this like 12 inches and my neck's bigger than 12 inches around. So let's say in terms of the ratings, which I know a lot of you are looking for. In terms of comfort, I have to tell you, because it is a mask that completely seals off, I can really feel that it's on my face, especially if I have the neck piece on and it's as tight as this one is. Not so much on this one. This one didn't feel as tight because I had put the toggles on it. I really notice this on my face, but at the same point, I'm not worried about it coming off, and it's definitely filtering out. So when I think of comfort, I've been wearing this now for about a week. I really wanted to make sure the design was gonna work, and it's actually relatively comfortable. For comfort, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 for comfort. Now, I'm gonna skip making for a minute and go right to efficacy. Even though I give this a 7 out of 10 for comfort, I think it's because I'm so used to wearing other style masks that don't hold on to my face so much. So I've also been wearing an N95 mask opposite of this. Like, you know, I wear this half a day and I wear the N95, and it is just as, it sticks to my face just as much, and I notice it just as much. And so from that perspective, I think this, from an efficiency standpoint, is a 10 out of 10 for me. Now, I'm not saying it's ever been tested anywhere, but this one was made with really tightly woven batik fabrics. And it is really, really good at keeping out anything. There is no air coming in through the sides. In fact, I have to kind of push my cheek down to get my hand in there, and I'm not getting anything here or under my chin. There's literally nothing coming from underneath there. So from an efficiency standpoint or efficacy, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. And then in terms of ease to make this, well, I gotta tell you, there's a couple great things about making it. There's no crazy angles to have to try to figure out or put in strange darts. Those couple of folds that we put in are actually pretty simple, and there's no cutting to do those. Literally, you're just flipping and folding. If you can line up these little points, it actually works really well. Also, it's all just straight line stitching. It really is kind of basic and easy to do. There's no curves to worry about. And in fact, it's not like the elastic's hard to put in. You're not having to create casings or anything. So I think in terms of ease to make it, especially since you don't have to have a special template, you can easily cut it out of a regular sheet of paper. I'm gonna give this also a 9 out of 10 in terms of ease to make it, only because it's not as simple as other things, but frankly, there's no crazy pleats. You're not trying to do like the deaconess pattern. You're not trying to figure out, did I get the curves cut exactly right? So a 9 out of 10 in terms of ease to make it. So 7 out of 10 in terms of comfort, only because it's so much more like an N95 mask or a really tight respirator. And I think from that perspective, it's just maybe less comfortable than what we're wearing for our typical fabric masks. A 10 out of 10 for efficiency and a 9 out of 10 to make it. I have had so much fun making this design. In fact, I really thought it was going to look a lot different when I started, because I was trying to make this funny asymmetrical crazy thing. And I ended up instead with what I think is a pretty darn good design idea for a mask. And hey, look how good it is. It has no cuts in it, no stitching anywhere across the part where your mouth is going to be, and you can feature beautiful fabrics. I hope you try this one out. Please like, subscribe, and join the channel. And until next time, folks, stay crafty. Bye for now. All right. I'm not sure if I feel like I'm underwater or if I'm in a strange Star Wars or sci-fi movie. Oh, all right, let's go see if everybody else likes the masks that I've made for them.